Let's take a second to kind of show you a tale of two cities here. On the left is a protest in Fort Worth. Not a lot of people out there. It was pretty calm. But on the right, pretty stark contrast in Dallas with several confrontations between police and protesters. The frustration and anger from protesters and those creating chaos is challenging city leaders right now. Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson tweeting, "Enough. The looting, vandalism, and violence must stop. Dallas deserves better than this." He also tweeted this picture here around midnight. He said he spent the evening monitoring the situation from Dallas's Emergency Operations Center. Our political reporter Jason Whiteley, he joins us this morning with a look at the struggle that city leaders are facing right now. And Jason, you know, I understand the frustration and the anger of protesters, but our city is also hurting as well.
Yeah, Cleo, there are two different situations going on here. You have the protesters who have a First Amendment right to be there. They should be there. This is a situation that has gone on for far too long in police minorities. The second issue, the problem in all of this, are the looters. And the mayor of Atlanta, Georgia, said it well the other day, how the looters have taken away the credibility of the protesters. Last night, like a lot of us, I was up thumbing through social media, hearing back and forth from Mayor Johnson's folks saying that, you know, he would like to appear with us this morning. So the mayor is with us this morning. Mayor, are you, it looks like, are you at your home this morning?
I am. And good morning.
Good morning to you. I always appreciate you making time for us. Let's talk about the two different problems here. The systemic racism in policing minorities is one issue. And in your tweet that Cleo just showed, you took no issue with that. Obviously, you support, like everybody does, unanimously, what's going on with the protest. The looting has become a real issue in the city, hasn't it?
You're absolutely right. And I'm so glad you brought this point up. And this is what I want people to understand. When we're looking at pictures of large groups of people assembled outside in our public square, the problem that I'm seeing is that we're describing them all as protesters and saying protesters are doing this, protesters are doing that. Here's what I think is really going on. I think you actually have three different groups of people out in the streets right now, and they don't come out with signs around their neck identifying who they are. I think you have legitimate protesters who have no intention when they leave the house of doing anything illegal or destroying any property, committing any acts of violence or anything like that. They just want to speak out on a real issue, and that issue being racial injustice and issues with police community relations in this country. And then I think you have another group of folks who understand that there's going to be a lot of people out in the streets, and this is a great chance for them to engage in mischief and criminal activity, and they come out with the intent of doing something bad. They are the ones with the rocks in their hands walking down the streets, and they are not there to protest. They're not protesters. When they're attacking folks, it's not that protesters have attacked or protest has turned violent. They were never there to protest in the first place. And then there's this second group of folks who are largely probably folks who've been cooped up in the house for 2 months, young people who are struggling with unemployment, in some cases, just sad and upset about the lack of prospects right now for employment and are losing hope. And they're bored and they see a bunch of folks out in the street and they say, you know what? Why don't I just go downtown and see what's going on? They're just there to see what's going on. When you're watching that on television, you have no idea who's who.
Yeah, exactly. They're not wearing a sign around them to differentiate themselves. Let's break this down real quick here. The New York Times crystallized it very well. You tweeted just before we came on here, hey, I'm going to appear on WFAA's Daybreak. And you had a bunch of people comment. And one person asked the question that everyone is asking, and that is, why aren't police held more accountable if indeed they might be prosecuted for police brutality against African Americans? It seems that the prison time they get, if any, is always very minimal. You were in the state legislature. You're the mayor of Dallas now. What needs to happen to address this?
I think that what we're starting to see now is with the advent of technology, what a lot of people who have lived large portions of their life in communities of color, like I have, or who are members of communities of color, like I am, who've known for many years that there's been a tense relationship between the police and the community at times based on disparate treatment. And a lot of these incidents that used to just be stories that you and your family and your inner circle knew about when you were detained for no reason or whatever are now
Yeah.
being captured on video, and people are seeing that, and it's starting to bring a greater awareness to this issue. So you're starting to see more people speak out on it, and you're starting to see people beyond the communities that are directly affected by it, more than just the people of color themselves, joining in this movement to bring attention to this issue. And it's sort of reaching a boiling point, and combining it with a pandemic where no one is going to work anymore and people are staying at home equals people have time to take to the streets now and make their voices heard, and that's happening.
Well, let me ask you about last night. For the second night in a row, we saw more vandalism in the city of Dallas. Restaurants, stores in Deep Ellum for a second night were vandalized. We saw the vandals now go to Victory Park. We saw them in Uptown last night. The Whole Foods on McKinney Avenue in Uptown had rocks or bricks thrown through the window as well, too. Here's what people want to know. No one wants to see anything happen to the protesters, but why aren't police doing something to the looters, to the people committing the crimes?
My understanding is that last night about 90 arrests were made, and that a large majority of the people who were arrested are not from Dallas. And I think that that is a telling fact. We have people coming into Dallas who are not our residents causing mischief. We are gathering information still, and our police chief and our city manager and I are going to be discussing today how we deal with this issue of an influx of people into our city who are here to do no good. So we're looking at everything. People have asked about curfews. Curfews are going to be looked at and discussed, but that is something that law enforcement is going to have to ask us for. They're going to have to tell us that that's what they think they need to be able to bring this under control. And if they want to do that, I'm supportive of that. But we need to assess the situation a little more carefully to make sure we know exactly what's going on.
I'm glad you addressed curfews. I was going to ask you about that. Do you think that's a decision that will be made today?
I think we have to look at it, but the issue with curfews is this. Curfews are a law enforcement tool. It's not something that you impose without there having to be any change in your policing strategy, which there would have to be. And so we can't impose that on the police department and say, impose a curfew. The police department needs to tell the decision makers, in this case, the city manager and myself, that that's a tool that they need. And if so, I think that we will have no problem with implementing something like that. But as of right now, we have not been asked to implement a curfew in the city by our law enforcement experts.
Mayor, the last thing I want to ask you about is graphic video that we saw last night. When I went to bed about 1:30, it had been viewed 8.6 million times. It appeared to show a mob violently beating a man in downtown Dallas in the Victory Park area, South Victory area. Do you know what happened to him? Do you know anything about that case?
I've seen portions of the video. I think there are videos of different lengths that show different, how much backdrop you see in terms of what happened leading up to the part where people are beating up this gentleman. But none of that matters to me. It's unacceptable for a beating like that to happen in my city. And I think that, the police are looking into that situation, and that's going to be addressed through our criminal justice system. But again, it goes back to the point of, I think I've seen this reported as protesters attack business owner or whatever. We have to get away from that. We have to address the situation as it is, and we need to continue to collect information as we arrest people on where they're coming from and who these people are, so we can get this under control.
And real quickly, is he still alive to your knowledge?
Oh, yes. To my knowledge, I've not been told that he's died at all.
Good. You made a great point. Mayor, you made a great point. You brought it back around to how we began the conversation. There are two different groups of people out there, at least two. One are the rightful protesters who should be there. The second are the looters, the ones who are out committing crime. and damaging and destroying small businesses who are already hurt by this pandemic. So, Mayor, thanks for getting up early with us. We appreciate that. I always appreciate you making time for us, sir.
Thank you, Jason. You're welcome.
Take care.